Santorini.
Sure.
We're Lagos, Nigeria. Ago I was I went out, one of those area boys, and this woman said, mistakenly born in Nigeria. I was like, yeah, that's me. It was a mistake, all right. Yes, how now? I need to give you a proper introduction. Anyway, first of all, welcome to Events Architects Academy. My name is Fumi Victor Okibo. I'm the lead facilitator. And today I have a special guest. Let me read about Tosi to you guys. Yes, I'm going to start.
Let's just go into
No. So Tosi is traveler and connoisseur of the good life. Chief Enjoyment Officer.
Just a public servant.
Welcome. I'm so happy to have Tosi here because so today, yes, it's a webinar, but we know we're just going to be vibing because it's my very good friend, and these are some of the things we talk about anyway.
Yeah.
On a good
So
day.
it's just like an everyday talk.
Yep. No pressure at all. No pressure. So, like you guys know, Events Architects Academy is an academy set up for people in the event possibilities are, not just in Nigeria, but worldwide, and that's why we're here. So without long story, I'll tell you more about the academy. Tosi and I are just going to dig right into it. Tosi, tell me, events, is it about jollof rice, small chops? You know, is that what people are looking for? Are people really hungry? Is that why they come for events? Tell me.
To be honest,
because you've enjoyed the good life, you travel all around the world, Yes.
I don't know who you're talking about. To be honest, but
oh boy.
The funny thing is, even those small chops and jollof rice are very important elements in events.
Especially in Nigeria.
You have to.
No matter how much you eat, the small you are still
that small chops.
And that's yours.
Yes. It has to be yours.
It's part of the experience.
So going down into it, we talk about experiences. We talk about what kind of leaves a lasting impression in the minds of attendees. Right? And we break down experiences. We have different types. Food, guests, photo experiences. All driven by different elements that you build into your event.
Yes.
Right? And I would always look at things from a pre, peri, and post perspective.
Absolutely.
Right? So if we look at events, right? We look at it from a situation where before the event happens, there is a pre-stage. Which involves you inviting your guests to the experience, to the event, right? And for the longest time, people have always stayed to a certain type of invite, And I think I saw something today at your office, and I was like, this should be shown to people, right? Rather than the classic regular IV, paper IV, where people just send it to you and just some people will just send you a message. Sure. Yeah. Some people actually put in thoughts into actually the experience of your invite.
Yes.
So if you look at this is what. The unofficial Christmas party 2019.
Yes.
And this was 3 years ago?
Yes.
I mean, look at this. This is brilliant.
We are steps ahead.
This is FBO.
We are steps ahead. We don't
FBO. This was FBO 3 years ago. So I'm sure this year is going to be mega.
It's going to be lit.
It's going to be lit. It's going to be lit. So to be honest, the experience actually starts from there.
Absolutely.
Right?
From the invitation.
From the invitation. So people can go all out. You can have, very nice gift boxes. You can have digital means of how to invite people. You can have a big thing around invitation, right? You can make it very mysterious. You can make it, where people solve puzzles. A jigsaw experience. You can have it in different, that's where creativity can shine, right? And this is what you do pre your event, right? And that's an experience because you have to take your event phase into different parts. So you say before the event starts, what experience do I want to give my attendees?
How do you want them to anticipate?
How do I want to anticipate?
Because sometimes in Lagos you have 3-4 invites on the same day. And you have to decide which one you want to go.
To, right? Also, importantly, is what you're telling people to do before the event. So if you're saying, oh, we're participating experience, for your event. Now, going into the event, right, there are now different parts because actively, if you have an event that is set out for 4 hours, right, you have 4 hours to make the best impression. And these 4 hours could play around what people see, what they smell, what they taste, what they remember, playing with nostalgic elements, playing with their past, playing with the future, right? Because all these things are very big elements in how an experience is built within the space, right? So for instance, if I'm throwing a 90s party, right? We're not in the 90s right now, right? So, but at the same time, the reason why I'm going into that event is because it reminds me of a time where this was the trend. Right? If you're throwing a Y2K party, right? It reminds me of the days of Bilbao, it reminds me of the School of Hard Knocks.
So you have to bring everything.
You have to bring basically, right? You are taking a part of their past and replicating it in that space, right? And a lot of times, I think, for event planners nowadays, I'll be honest, it's a lot of work to kind of juggle so many things, right? And I always say that on the team, always have some people dedicated to just creativity and the experience management.
Absolutely.
Because while you're heavy lifting other aspects, when it comes to
clients is dragging
you,
vendors are dragging you, budgets, things like that.
All that stuff. You have someone who's focused on looking at the event from the attendee's perspective, not from the planner's perspective.
Absolutely.
You understand? So, I mean, if I want to make you feel like you're in Santorini,
all
I need to do,
talk to me,
change the air, give you some pastel white and blue colors, right? And boom,
I think
you're a Greek goddess.
You know what? I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
And what I've done is I've played with colors, I've played with smell, I can play with food, I can play with nature, right? Human nature, to just be able to create a story. Now people walk into that event, have an experience and they don't forget. They have an experience.
What you're saying just reminds me of, nothing wrong with that, but you have to come with everything.
True.
Yeah, you have to come with everything. Don't just do one part of it and leave the other part.
So I tell people that, part of the reason to put experiences at events is also to invest in their own experiences, right? So I'll call it an experience bank. Part of the reasons why I travel, part of the reasons why I love going to events that have, a bit of uniqueness to it. It's not just every normal event you just go to. Because at some point you get tired.
Absolutely.
Right?
With Lagos traffic.
I mean, and you have to, for women they have to do makeup, they have to do all that stuff. And they have to do a lot of makeup. And they have to get into the event and it's not memorable. And that's a problem.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Because the next time you put out something, people are not going to want to show up. Right? So I say that for people to recall that this experience was done by you at so time of the year, it has to leave a lasting impression on people's minds, right? So if we look at it, right, investing in your experience bank is key. And there are different ways. Some people say, oh, but I don't have money to travel. You have YouTube.
Yes, true.
You have YouTube. True. You have Instagram.
Yep.
Reels is doing wonders. You don't have to.
Pinterest.
There's Pinterest. right? There are a lot of ways you can stay inspired, right? And what you said about follow through is key because it's just if you don't want to confuse your guests, right? And part of the reasons why you said this is the theme is because they've imagined certain things.
You want to transport them,
right?
For crying out loud. Yes.
So for some people who have been to those cities,
Yeah.
or who have spent time in those countries, who have spent time around, if like for instance, if I say I'm throwing a 90s party and you're playing me at Shake, I'll be like, is the DJ serious? Is the DJ competent?
Oh my God!
You understand? Is he ready?
Yeah.
You get me?
Yes.
So you know, and part of the reasons why you hiring an experienced manager or having someone on the team just look out for all these little elements is very key.
Yep.
Just because you want to say you stay true all the way to the end.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How you start and how you end is very important. Right? Because I went to a food a Korean barbecue event recently, and it was an experience because I've never been to Korea, but I've watched a few K-drama series, right? I know about soju, right? I know about a few things here and there, and there was this experience about a bunch of people gathering together to dine like the Koreans do, and it was brilliant because for me it was on that table we had people who had been to Korea, and they were telling me certain things about Korea that I didn't know before, right? And at the same time, the host for that experience was able to stay true to the Korean. So we even had Korean games played at the space. And guess what? The experience was now finished off with a hangover kit. Because, you've been eating, you've been drinking, you don't want to feel bad after the event. So we've also thought about
that. There was one event I did some years ago. It was a 50th birthday party, and it was a party into the morning.
Yes.
So we knew people were going to leave at 2, whatever. So surprise, surprise, at about 1 a.m. we brought out breakfast. So they had breakfast.
Look at that.
Everyone was like, whoa. Yeah, so they had
expecting.
eaten everything, the food, the music, and everything. And then we just brought sausages, eggs, and things. And like,
That's part of why, looking at all the different elements to how you build your event is key.
Yes.
Right? Because you have the start and you have the finish. Then you have the post. So post event is what happens, and this is why you invest in making sure there's a photo experience area. There are certain ways how there are guest interaction spaces where you want
Instagrammable moments. Yes.
Hashtags. All that stuff, because post-event, you still want your event to be right.
But are people still big on hash? I remember there was a time I would watch a whole wedding with a hashtag. Like somebody's getting married. And you're like, you know what? You are with your popcorn. And you're like, this is what. And then people went to the event and come and tell you, this one is like, don't worry. You are telling me, like, when you're there, I'm like, don't worry. I've
seen all the different angles.
Yes, from different people. I don't know if people are still that big on hashtags. Because reels still do reels now.
Yeah, so people do reels now. And I think that, it's just like how every time something is dying down, somebody has to take it and just reinvent it, right?
Yes.
If I put $1 million to a hashtag and say, you know what, I'm looking out for the best content on that hashtag, people will use it.
Nice idea. Hey, I love it.
Or if I say, you know what, your wedding gift, your wedding takeaway, what do you call that thing?
Souvenirs.
Yeah. It's tied to it's tied to you, having a content posted on that.
I love that.
So there's different ways to just maintain consistency. Just because and you might be that kind of person who just wants to stay in the nicest hotel and all that stuff. Some people might go out and food experience is all about what they're about, right? There are different ways to how they can connect using hashtags. Because to be honest, how many people can you follow? And the way the algorithm is now is that once you start engaging with certain hashtags, the content, your feed starts to adjust to those kind of content because they're trying to give you relevant content.
Yes.
Right? Try to get your engagement.
Yes.
So it's no longer the way we would just say, just put your hashtag here, and you just expect everybody to use it. There has to be a creative way to engage it, but it's also a key experience element because that's the way you can track how much post-content you have, post-event content you have, and how well your event actually did, for instance. And also, because this also boils down to technology. A lot of people are beginning to use tech to their advantage, right? Because, there are newer innovations every day. So with the likes of VR, with the likes of, QR codes, and, quite a number of stuff that are going on, metaverse now. Different age category. And I say that when you're designing experiences, you have to always look at the age. You have to look at the people.
Target audience. Yeah.
What's their age?
Yep.
What's their interest?
Don't bring grandma to an event for 80-year-olds. Well, even though sometimes.
Even though
the aunties who got
the truth is, after a while, they can follow through on their songs.
Yeah.
Do you get? So, understanding your audience is very key. Some people are so caught up with the project sponsor pays for the event and say, okay, you know what? This is my 50th birthday, right? And like for instance, you have a lot of Gen Zs around you, right? You also have a mix of millennials. If you're celebrating your birthday and you're doing a birthday that's just focused on one category alone, you're losing on the other markets, right? You're losing on the other audience, segments. So it's always key to just understand your audience category, understand their interests, and try what they love,
yeah, infuse it into your
events. Because people are so focused on the person who's paying, what the person is interested in, but they don't know, okay, the guest list, who are the people that are being invited? What do they really like? If I put up a wall here, will people actually take pictures with it?
True.
Because you find out that in events, they do so many things, but it's just one thing that becomes viral.
And you are competing with social media. Like people are always on their phones.
Yes.
So if your event is boring, you're just gonna have photos out of some people on they're like time. But you have to excite them, and something new has to be happening every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Or else we'll just lose them.
Yeah, so that's where experience planning, you cascade,
you build up. Crescendo.
So there's part of the reasons is also in music as well, right? So if there's a reason why the DJ starts a certain way. Once he sees that the crowd is, there's certain songs he will drop that will lose people. And there's certain songs he'll take you to. Because the truth is, for instance, right, when we go dancing in other countries, Afrobeat is big. But you can't a DJ cannot just stay on Afrobeat alone because the audience is mixed. You have French, you have the Germans, you have Dutch people, you have Chinese. So you have a lot of people on the dance floor. So you as an Afrobeat DJ, except if the theme of the night is just Afrobeat, right? Then you can just stay larger. But
even with that, you can do mixes.
You can mix it. So you can take it to hip hop, bring it out to EDM, go to different genres.
Still infuse your Afrobeat
because guess what? Everybody leaves there with a bit of something, and that's what it is. That when people leave your event, they have something to go away with, right? Some people can say, you know what, the food for them was a banger, right? Some can say, you know what, the thought process that went into the souvenirs, right, was what they did it for them. Some people, the play elements, they put a Banson castle. It's been a minute since I was on that, right? That was a key thing for me. Some people say the music, right? DJ knew what he was doing.
And he killed it.
Yeah. Some people like the ambience. Some people tell you the smell. Because a lot of people forget about how places smell and how it can affect or how it can transport people to different locations. If the air is clean, if the air smells a certain type of way.
Not exhaust and all these.
No,
just for you didn't say that. Love to hear. Yes.
Where you can, you know.
Yes. I mean, there are spaces where even you go to restaurants in Lagos and you are in there and you're like, I could be anywhere in the world here. You forget you are in Lagos, and that's what it does. So there's also the space design.
Space design.
Yeah, what you see when you come in there and all that. I also like what you said about, if you're not creative, get somebody who's creative on your team. I always tell my team that creativity is a lifestyle. A lot of them ask me, how do you say creative? I'm like, I don't wait until the client calls before I start to research. Yeah. It's a lifestyle. On Instagram,
I have a mood board.
I have a mood board. I have things I just save. I save a lot of things, and it's important. Even if you're not the creative person, right? If you have a creative team, you need to know what's up to be able to tell them this works.
So you need to also know how to critique, ideas.
Yeah, because somebody did, and we're working on a project now, and I got someone to help with the creativity part, and he came back and he said, some really nice ideas of what he thought people should wear, like a dress code. But I said, this particular target audience, they won't care for this. So we have to find a way to bring elements of that into what they will wear.
Right,
yeah, because if you have Gen Z will go all out. And they have all the money in the world. They're like, why should I do that? So all these things are very, very, very important in what we do. Of course, there's the food. We've talked about the small jobs and everything.
Food is
very important.
Right? But sometimes you can get away with bad food if all the other parts of the experience works.
I think it's a nice balance.
Because some and I'm still looking for that caterer who catered to that event, just because the food was kind of like the nicest.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And a part of the reason why we go to some festivals because how many restaurants can you go to? How many some of these ghost kitchen spots can you order from? So some of these festivals actually aggregate all these guys under one house, and you're able to like taste from different stalls and have a bit of that. Part of the reason why people travel is just because it also helps with the experience back because if I tell you that this blue is Santorini blue, but you've never seen it.
Yes.
If you're careful, right, you will think that if you're not careful, you'll think that's it. Or meanwhile, that's not the correct thing. So you can go out if you don't critique that idea, or you don't also invest in your own personal. You can go out with a false exposure. You can go out with a false narrative, and it can backfire, and that's what it is. So
and that's why. Excuse me, and that's why people should research, right?
Yeah.
Gone are the days when I say something that we are really, really blessed. This generation, we have YouTube. Imagine those days.
Yeah.
People have to go to a library, queue, get a book, read.
Before you
you have everything at your fingertips, right? If you Google Santorini party, on YouTube,
because people are sharing. So we live in a
sharing. So what's your excuse? So don't say, it's because I don't have money to travel. I don't have a visa. That's not an excuse.
No, it's
research, get online,
follow the right account.
Yeah, follow the right account.
So I say that.
Yeah, true.
I try to. If it's the creative,
follow the right account. Follow Tosi Oyewale. Then you get to see Tosi in action. Yeah.
So I say that if it's creating a separate, Instagram page.
Yes.
To just follow accounts that inspire you. So it's not just following your friends. You see, there's certain. Truth be told, is some people will tell you executing the same idea here is difficult, right? You have to go through so many hurdles. Yes, but it's also still possible. So last weekend, Amazon Prime Nigeria, did something amazing.
Yes, with the drones. Yes,
they were trying to mark the finale of the Rings of Power, which is an Amazon Prime, Nigeria series currently going on now, and every normal event person would have said, why do we need to gather people to just celebrate the end of the season? But they went out and said, you know what, it's not just the end of the season, but we want to make sure that we leave a remarkable impression in people's minds. And, I'm sure it took them more than 2-3 months to plan,
Mm-hmm.
but
And it was worth it.
and it was
Yeah,
worth it
yeah.
because they were able to achieve something that
Mhm.
nobody has ever achieved in West Africa, right?
Mhm.
520 drones in the air, all just
Amazing.
marking that celebration. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Right? So sometimes for some projects you might not find the right sponsors, but just have it in your idea bank. Because when the right people are talking to you, you have something to offer. I'm sure a lot of people might have offered different things, but somebody just say, why don't we do a drone show? And you're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
How much will it cost?
Yeah.
No problem. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll call the right authorities to get us their approvals and all that stuff. And it happened in Nigeria. And they would probably say they are the first to actually do it here locally, right? So these are things that event managers and event planners can invest in. What is that one memorable experience that I want to leave with my guests? That I want to leave with my attendees?
What do you want them to talk about?
What do you want them to talk
because
about?
Because for this particular event, nobody's going to ask about what did you eat.
Nobody's
They're going
honestly.
they're going to talk about.
They're always going to talk about.
Yes, that's something that.
Everybody's going to show you footage. Nobody's going to show you their popcorn or their the cocktails they had. Even though it was good, it was great.
Yeah.
But what left that lasting impression was that, and that's part of the key things with running events from an experience point of view. Because people can say, oh, well, I do events every day, but do you put in experiences in there? It's not just about, oh, I saw familiar faces, it was a good way to just meet the people, but that's it. But there has to be more to that than just, meeting people and greeting people and just like, oh, and that's what it is. So questions have started coming in. Yeah. But I hope you guys are enjoying so far. If you have any comments, put it in there. If you have any questions, put it in there. We're taking questions. A question came in. It says, how exposed do you have to be to create memorable events? I think you already touched on that, but maybe this person joined. So like I said, you have to always invest in your personal experience bank. What I mean is, if you don't even have money to travel, then that's an excuse, man. There are certain ways you can learn about things. Dubai is one great place that has different things happening every day because they're always pushing themselves forward, right? If you follow certain accounts in Dubai, you will always see something that celebrating or a new experience, a new type of event, and all that stuff. There's some parts in Europe as well that are big on experiences, right? There's a concept I'd like to go for next year that it's just the whole setup is amazing, right? And at the same time, you know that this takes a lot of planning. But guess what? You don't have to replicate the entire thing. Take bits of it. Take bits. Let it inspire you. Bits of it. To inspire you. There are a lot of things I've learned in places like Spain, where you see how they do parties, and you're able to replicate that here locally, right? Food culture is amazing in certain countries as well. So you have, so far you have the internet, right? You can use Instagram as an inspiration tool, as an inspiration finder, right? You can also use YouTube, which is also, and there's Google that will be as well. So the only thing is now finding some of these things, locally, and this is where your creativity has to shine, where you can have a twist, right? Finding local vendors who can recreate some of these elements, but everything is still possible. And again, speaking of vendors, again, this is something I talk to my students about in class. The way you brief your vendors or your service providers goes a long way. So, for example, you have a food vendor and you say, you know what, we have 100 guests for a 50th birthday party. Quote, send us a quote. The vendor is going to send you jollof rice, chicken, fish, and all that. But if you tell them, look, I want to do a Bollywood party, right? I want to transport my guests to India. That will even challenge the service provider to be like, you know what? I want to do something extraordinary. So you need to take them on that same journey, expose them to what you are thinking. You may not know all the latest ways to bring technology to your event, but you have your service providers that are there. Tell them what you're trying to achieve and hand that assignment to them to go and do their research in their own field
And then by the time you bring all your vendors together, you have a great event, because that's your job as events person, to just, take everybody to that journey. Yeah.
And I always say that, if I go through your phone and I don't see as many screenshots, these are little things that,
You know the funny thing? Oh my God! That's because there was somebody I interviewed some years ago, and she was like, "Oh, I'm a creative," and I said, "Let me see your phone." And I just, because that's true. Screenshots.
How do you
if I show you my Instagram, those saves.
Yeah.
I have like 20 categories.
Yeah.
I have different categories for different things. So when some people are using it to watch, Gist Master or whatever it is they are watching, and that's fine. It's such a creative space,
yes.
depending on who you're following.
Yes.
I know with Instagram now, the more you follow a certain type of people, the more it's going to be showing that you're people around the same.
True.
Yeah. All right. We have another question.
Right.
The question says, "How do you get ideas?" I think we've all again touched on these things.
Let's keep talking.
Because people keep coming in.
So
Yes.
To be honest, I didn't have the ability to travel.
Mm-hmm.
But I said I was going to start from somewhere, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to try and explore countries using food.
Love it.
So I looked around in Lagos and I said, okay, well, there's Chinese restaurant, there's a Thai restaurant, there's an Indian restaurant, there's a Japanese restaurant, there's Lebanese, right? I've never been to Lebanon, I've never been to Japan, all these places. And I said, you know what? I'll walk in and try a few meals, right? And also try to learn about those meals. That is somewhere how you can get some ideas on how, if you're able to do something, right, you know how certain things are plated, how certain things are done. Because the truth is, you can have different ideas, right? But how you execute is also different.
Very important,
right?
Yes.
Because you can see something brilliant on Pinterest, or you can see something brilliant on Instagram. But
what's the order?
You
said it to your vendor, and you see, you're like,
no.
I can understand the idea, but execution, no way.
Somebody say, why can't you just sell on my line? So
yes,
no, I'm having an Arabian thing.
Yes, so exactly. I went to a destination wedding once outside Nigeria, and there was egusi jollof rice, and I was like, why? Nigerians, we are funny, right? Why? I know somebody went there and forced the chef there to say you have to cook. But what's the point, right? It's a destination event. You're even out of the country, it's an opportunity for them to taste the culture and everything. Yes.
So you invest in your idea back, right? Sometimes you have to spend money in attending certain types of events just because you want to see how people execute it.
True.
You learn more if you're able to be there and you see like placements, you see size, you see colors. There's certain events you go to and you're like, what's the color palette so dull? It doesn't lift. People are doing interesting things with lights now. People are doing interesting things with.
I love my lights.
Yes. So these are some of the things that just by introducing the right lights would change up the space.
Absolutely.
How do you even know that those lights exist? It's based on investment. It's also tied to how much you're willing to invest in, your idea back. So there's certain tools.
And there's some lights you shouldn't use. I mean, that's if you use green lights, some black people, you look funny.
Yeah, so you look funny.
You also have to find out about how
you watch, you consume a lot of resources online.
Yes.
I mean, and because we live in a shareable economy, right? People are happy to put out this information. Some people will put it out and say, you have to pay. Well, if you look really deep, right, you'll find that there are a lot of free resources here.
True.
Sometimes I just, go on my couch and I just put, a travel channel on repeat. And it just helps me see things, how certain things are being done and all that stuff. Maybe here we're not big on documenting for platforms like that because we're always key on showing people just jumping up and down.
Yes.
But there's some parts of like in SA and some other countries, they will show you details like down to the flowers, down to the table arrangement and all those things. And these are things you can easily pick up remotely and not by just you being in that space. So yes.
Amazing. Oh my God. I'm learning so much today.
you that you're a connoisseur.
No, I mean, I love this. You know, Tosin, that on a good day, this is what we talk about. So I'm just happy that I'm giving you guys the privilege of, listening to Tosin talk. Yeah. So send me dollars, dears. Dollars. So another question is it possible to create an event that will give a memorable experience to both young and the older generation? If yes, give me tips. Yeah. So what they're trying to say is that you have talked about target audience and everything, but
so
how do you?
One thing is you realize that younger people would have definitely more energy, so they can stay from start to finish. Older people would probably, and that's I think they do it in weddings now, where
there's an after party for the. And then the older ones will be like, but after some time you're like, I'm done. Yes.
The truth is, understanding what the younger people want, right? If you need the young people to, older people would say they're getting to the event space on time. They're more respectful. Yes. They respect time and all that.
The Gen Zs.
You know what? I'm sure they're not ready.
Exactly. And then they're checking Instagram. Who has posted? If they've not posted,
they've not started.
Yeah. Then when they post, they say, who has posted?
Yeah.
That's it.
Give them audience on how to actually now. Okay, I'm getting there.
Yes.
But guess what?
Once they begin to start to go,
so once they get there, but once they get into your event, right, they can push your event further.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I always say you have to plan for things like that. Because once they get there and you're now go, that's the time you want to shut down. You basically kill their vibe, you kill the energy. Well, now what are you going to do with all that?
All that energy, yes.
So, part of things, that's how you have to, like we said earlier, you have to create your experience in models, right? So you say, well, you know what, this is targeted for the early comers and all that stuff. Even events, there are certain events you go to late. Trust me, jollof rice is finished. Yeah. There's no meat. All that stuff, right? So they'll tell you get early. But there's some events you get to, that small chops is always later. They will never sell you small chops at the beginning of the event. Never. So if you leave too early, you won't get small chops.
Yes, you have to just wait.
You have to just wait, because it's a after party stuff. You get all that stuff.
Oh,
so
boy.
So it's you have to learn how to break it down into bits and just know how it will work.
Okay. The other thing I want to ask is how do you? Question that I see Daniel typing a question, but before then, how do you bring these events to life on a low budget? Because it's all well and good where you say, oh, you want to do this, you want to do that, and the client is like, please, this is how much I have. What do you do in that situation?
So, first thing is to, break down your events into location, people. You have to understand, okay, how much of this budget are you allocating to different places, right? Sometimes the client will tell you that, I want to have my event in a beach house. Beach houses are not cheap, right? But part of the reasons why they want to do that is just because they want, a beach feeling, right? But there's a twist to that. So basically, the client just wants a beach feeling, not necessarily wants to go swimming.
Yep.
So you can actually use
for those elements.
Take those elements.
Yeah.
I can say, let me buy one tip of sand.
Yes.
Wait in the menu.
Yep. I had an idea once. There was this corporate client I wanted to do an end of year party. I'm not going to mention their name.
Yeah.
I had this idea to fill a hotel with sand and bring the sand there. They did not go with us. But, so somebody on the team later called me and said, your ideas are great, but these guys are kind of conservative. They thought you were mad. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It's okay, yeah. But
the right people will come.
Yes, exactly. But yeah,
So they're different. People go all the way to local markets to recreate stuffs, in cheaper formats, people can use certain local games to just try and build better guest interaction. People can, say, okay, you know what, I don't have 60,000, I don't have 50,000 naira to create a photo wall.
Yeah.
But you know what, I'll give anybody who can create something in this space 50,000 naira and turn it into a competition. And before you know it, people, you've shifted that creativity back into people rather than spend that money creating something that may or may not work. So it's just understanding that if I'm sitting on this side of the table and I'm looking at things and I'm stuck, let me switch to the other side and look at it. If I'm able to figure out a way then you're able to find a way around budget, right? Sometimes you might have to scale down. Sometimes you might have to just maybe have it in parts, right? Because I think people get overwhelmed trying to do everything within the same space. But sometimes the space will not allow. There are certain parties that cannot happen here in Nigeria because the venue doesn't exist, right? There are certain things that cannot happen just because, you know what, the people haven't gotten to that point, right? Or we don't have that many resources who can perform on that level, right? So it might be too expensive bringing stuff like that in. But I mean, there are mini projects that you can execute to validate your idea. And some people will see it and say, okay, you know what, can we do this on a bigger scale? And you can take it forward.
I also think that sometimes, you know, it's also the way you communicate with your clients, because sometimes you see a client saying, for example, I want to take everybody to the beach. I want everybody to feel like they're on the beach, right? They say that from the get-go. Halfway through, they tell you, you come up with this idea, and they tell you, you know what, we don't have any money, we don't have any money. I usually remind them, I say, remember this is important to you. Okay, we may not be able to do the beach. What if we bring, like you said, sand into the venue? So you tell them back what they told you at the beginning. Yes,
send it back to them.
Exactly. But if you're just trying to force and it's like, oh, is it like you don't spend my money? You remind them of that thing that's important to them. Clients need your reassurance, they need your advice. I've heard a client before who said, you know what, we're designing a menu for them, and they're like, oh, I don't like fish, so don't include fish. I'm like, duh, there are 1,000 people coming for this event. Surely somebody there likes fish. You know, so they're like, oh yeah, it's true. So as an event planner, event manager in hospitality business, don't feel like you just have to do everything your client says. Yeah, they won't respect you if that's all you do. That means you're just a messenger. You're a consultant. You are here being paid because of what you know and you experience. Yeah,
and it's an opportunity to educate them as well.
Thank you to tell them what's going on and sometimes it's also about you earning their trust.
True, because that's why you're a professional. That's why they're calling you.
Yeah, because if you come and you are talking to them and you're not giving great ideas and they'll be like, what's this one saying? But from the get-go, when you are telling them about something, like, this person is, this person is exposed. This person knows what's up. You know,
it goes a long way.
Yeah.
How they can justify certain costs.
Please keep your questions coming. We're taking questions.
How they can justify, certain amounts. Why? Because some clients will come back to tell you and say thank you for insisting we do this thing.
Exactly.
So the only time is if you feel you're not sure about that direction, then don't go and get your client to pay for something that you're not. Yes, because you don't know how to defend it. Yes. So if I say that, you know what, I've seen this being executed somewhere and it turned out great, I'm sure I would also have the same result. But you have to also understand your people, the people that are coming for the event. That's very important because they can make or more. You can do
because you can bring a great idea to the wrong crowd. And
somebody else will take that same idea to the right crowd and become a huge thing. And the other thing about ideas is always be sure, something you also said, that be careful of the ideas you take on Instagram or online and replicate. So I'll tell you this story. I'm sure anybody who's close to me and all my students, they've heard this thing to death. Some years ago, I was working with a brand, and this was years ago, and it was supposed to be, I'm sure you guess the brand by now. The logo is a harp, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to have somebody with a harp at the entrance, and I saw this. I'm very good at selling ideas. They were like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was like, ooh, lovely. And then that's why I said, okay, so let me even start calling around to find out.
Yes. First of all, there was no harp in Nigeria at the time. Wow. Then I now found out, I called all my friends, my contacts in South Africa. I heard that at the time, there was only one person with a harp in Ireland or something. And there was only one person who could play, or a few people. Disaster. Wow. Meanwhile, I told the client that what happened was, I think they canceled the event. Something happened, and I was so happy and grateful for that. But can you imagine, I brought this idea, sold it to the client, and I couldn't execute.
You're gonna bring it in. It's not hard.
So things have changed now, but then it was just so always be do ideas that you can execute.
I would say that because you're always limited to how much information you have access to.
Yeah.
So always invest in finding out more. I go to events and I see people who do stuff, and I just reach out and say, hey, I like what you did here.
Yep.
Get their contacts.
Absolutely.
You never can tell when you might need that, that interaction, that service. So
like you said, ideas bank.
yeah, so just keep building. Somebody will just call you out of the blue and say, by the way, I'm looking for somebody who can do this. You're like, I have somebody saved.
Yes, exactly.
I'll send it to that person.
I'm very good with that. I have emails from years ago. You won't believe it. I'll just remember, and I go and I'm like, this is the person, or this is the thing, or this is the idea I have saved so long ago. So
there's a lot of people just it's when they get the idea then they are not trying to figure out, because sometimes when you have the contact, it's easy to connect the dots, right? So for instance, if somebody who has a special talent, I mean, right now you see people who at events they do magic and all that stuff, right? I mean, it's becoming popular now, but back then it wasn't a thing because that craft of magic wasn't really,
acceptable.
That kind of thing, it's ever juju or this. But now at events, people, would entertain guests, and it's fun because now they take out their phones, they record, they share with their friends, and people are like, oh wow, I love that. So sometimes certain resources might not be available, but never say never, because in a few months or a few years, somebody might invest in that, and now it's now accessible to that market. So that's a demand. And before you know it, you start getting fully booked.
And you really never really know. I tell my students this when they come to class. I tell them, sometimes just have ideas. About it and everything. These people came to me, they wanted to do a 1-year-old party. I don't really do 1-year-old parties, but I do production, like So I was like, you know what? No problem. I gave them this idea. It was pretty much bringing Disney to Lagos. That's what I did. I created it. And they were like, you know what? Sure, let's do it. And that's what happened. So sometimes don't limit yourself. Have the ideas ready. Have the proposals ready. When you get the right client, you just connect. So you're not now running around and trying to figure out what to do, because you just never know, If somebody said, what role does social media play in creating events? Again, we've answered a lot of these questions, but I also understand that some people are probably coming in and out. Yes. So what role does social media play in creating events?
To be honest,
and then how do you create a niche for yourself in event planning? 2 questions.
So social media can play with either your pre-game, right? So your pre-game, which means what happens before the event actually starts. We make mention about the invites and all that. If you want to build a social media experience, some people now will send gift boxes to some of their friends and say, oh, please put it out.
Yes.
Because you know what I want as a result is for people to see it,
to talk about
it, to say, okay, you know what, there are a few people in my circle with these boxes and what's going on. Some people can
However, let me also chip this in,
Yeah.
right? So as we're talking about boxes, yes, I know boxes are a thing, but please, can we pay a little bit of attention to boxes? Because on these boxes, you get it and you're like, okay.
It's not box you want to keep.
Yeah. You know, like 2 days ago, I'm not going to mention it, but still.
To be honest,
it's true, because sometimes you look at all the tacky stuff they put in, I'd rather you give me one thing that's
that's really nice.
Yeah, we don't all have to do the box
I think maybe because also people see concepts and jump on it.
That's another thing.
To innovate.
Yes, exactly. Must it always be a box?
So
you get, and then when you get to the venue, it tells you look for somebody with the other parts, click it, just take a picture. I don't know. It could be anything like that. We don't have to be all fixated on boxes.
And that's the pre-game, that's the pre-event. So during the event, you can have a moment all set aside for social media. I mean, with the goal of social media in mind, where you want everybody to bring out their phones
and do
something,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And once they're doing it, they are actually helping your social media game as well, because people start saying, "Oh, who did that? Who did that? Oh, I saw it somewhere."
Yeah.
You know, and before you know it, it becomes
A thing.
right? And you are able to guarantee your next client. And also, you can also have a post event, which is people can look at what happened during the event, create reels around it, and put it out and say, okay, I was at the birthday bash last month, and this was the vibe, that kind of thing. That's how social media can help with, with event experiences, right? So, and you can make it like an infinity loop type of thing, where the post also feeds into the pre, where people are inviting people for the next one, based on how you've arranged it. So it's a very, very interesting space that you can play around with.
And the thing about social media is you can't tell people, beg them, plead them to post on social media. Or you can just create the experiences.
And they will post.
And then you wake up in the morning and you're like, whoa! Because they are just generating content for you free of charge.
Yeah.
Because your event was late.
It's just like a kid's playground. If you put a kid,
if you build this, they will come.
They'll just find their way.
Yes.
Parents are not worried. Oh, how will my child navigate that thing?
Yes.
They will find their way around it.
Yes.
So that's what it is.
Yes.
So if you put one major, big, interesting looking statue here, people will just like, oh, this is nice.
Absolutely.
And they want to like, okay.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you're just sitting back and you're like, people are using it the way you planned.
Yeah.
And guess what? Sometimes people use things like, they flip the use case. So you'll be shocked how people can take it from an interesting perspective. And that's the beauty. Because you're like,
I didn't think about that. Yes.
I'm like, oh yeah, it's just right there.
Yeah.
And that's how how interesting how people see different stuff.
For lack of a better term, you can actually manipulate your guests.
Yes.
By the way you design your events.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can guide them.
You can guide them.
There's a design flow.
Yes.
You can say, okay, I want my
This is
guests
what I want them to do.
Yeah.
This is what I want them to think.
Move.
Yes.
So like now, what happens generally in the event space? People arrive. There's a guest check-in point. After you get it, they get their welcome drinks. They get seated. And all that stuff. Some places you go to, as you check in, there's a photo area.
Yeah.
Different photo experiences, so that before you get out of there into sitting, right? They've at least 30, 45 minutes they've engaged you, just so that by the time you are now seated, you're ready to start the event. So also there's an exit path as well, right? Your exit path, pick up your bags, leave, or take a picture. Design flow is important. You have to look at things from the attendee's perspective.
Not from your perspective. Absolutely.
Because all you're just thinking is, is the light blue? Is the light green? Is the floor this? No. You have to look at it from. So you have to be like, okay, if I was a guest at this event, what would be my experience?
Yes. And that also brings me to, so sometimes how you have this tunnel. There was a time when tunnels were a thing. Everybody was saying tunnels.
Tunnel, the lights.
Lights and everything. And okay, that's fine. But sometimes I see you go into a tunnel and they have lots of words written on the tunnel. And I tell people, nobody's going to read it. If you stop to read it, you are going to cause traffic. So yes, I get it. You are doing a tunnel. It's somebody's birthday. You are putting all the miles. So this person went to this university. This person. Nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to see it.
It's a moving part.
Yes, but so people are moving. So if you're going to put anything at all on the tunnel, make sure it's big, bold, and easy to read as you walk. So like you said, you have to look at it from the point of view of the user or the attendee. It's not about you. If you really think it through, then you know that some of these things are things you should have to pay attention to. Pay attention to detail. We have 3 minutes to go. I think that's about all we can say. We promised you 1 hour, and we're getting 1 hour. Thank you so much, Tosin. You have to come back. Promise me. You have to say in front of everybody. You're going back.
See, I think we'll take it here.
Yeah.
All right?
Woo-hoo! Next time, we're going to go. Yeah. Thank you. Event architects, please, are you hearing? I'm not doing any more webinar from my office. We're
we have to change it. Now we're having this as scenery.
Exactly.
But now we need the real thing. So
we want the real thing. Yes. So thank you you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'd like you to follow Events Architects Academy to get to know more about what we do. Watch this space. We've had a few trainings already. We have an alumni. We're in the same WhatsApp group. We're planning a hangout soon. So those are the perks of coming to our trainings. We don't just train and go. No, you become part of the community with FBO, and we're always doing lovely things together. So we have a training coming up in November. I'm not quite sure of the dates, and even if I do, I'm not going to tell you. Go and follow Events Architects Academy for all the details you need. Thank you so much. And see you guys soon. Bye bye. See ya.